Welcome to today's class on Power BI. In our previous class, we installed Power BI, explained what Power BI can be used for, and most of the use cases. We tried opening the Power BI desktop, which is our emphasis. Remember, we have Power BI desktop, we have Power BI service, which some authors may call Power BI Pro. And then we have the Power BI mobile. Power BI desktop runs on our desktop. Power BI service or Power BI Pro, according to some authors, runs in the cloud. That's actually the online Power BI. And Power BI mobile runs in our mobile phones. They have different functions. You cannot perform certain analysis in Power BI service. Most of our data connection, data cleaning, data transformation takes place in the Power BI desktop. As a matter of fact, 70% of the activities will take place in the Power BI desktop. So that's why we're going to give it much attention. And today, our class will begin with the Power BI desktop workflow, what we call the Power BI desktop workflow. When you want to begin a project in Power BI, how does the workflow go? How does it move? From what step to what step? What are you expected to do first before the other? What are the protocols involved in carrying out a data analysis project in Power BI desktop? That is what we call Power BI desktop workflow. So whenever you want to carry out an end-to-end data analysis project in Power BI, the first thing that happens is that you connect to the data source. You connect to data source. Remember, in our last class, we saw how Power BI has the ability to connect to several data sources. That is actually how powerful Power BI is. It can connect to many data sources, such as Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Access. It can connect to SQL, maybe PostgreSQL or MySQL or Microsoft SQL Server, that is database. It can also connect to some online platforms like the AWS, the Azure, and the rest of them. So these are different connectors. So when we talk about connectors, we are talking about where is my data originally? Because analysis begins with collecting the raw data. You have the raw data, and that raw data definitely will not be in Power BI. You may have that raw data in a different platform or different application. Most of those applications are supported by Power BI. So what you do is you connect to the data. Now, when you perform the data connection from the source, the data enters into an environment called the query editor. That data comes in as a query. It's a very simple technique. It's just like trying to demand for a set of data or try to demand for an entire data set. Once through Power BI, you make a demand for an entire data set. What you've simply done is that you have queried the data, and the data enters into the Power BI query editor. That is the environment where you carry out what we call data preparation. You don't just jump into analysis. You take time to prepare. It's just like data analysis is just like cooking. Somebody who wants to cook soup, you go to the environment where the raw materials you need are. That's just the open market or possibly any market. And you purchase the meat, the vegetables, and all the rest of them. And when you purchase them, you bring them into your kitchen. At this point now, your kitchen is more or less like the query editor, the environment where you perform data preparation. You don't bring the foodstuffs into your bedroom or into your sitting room. You take it to the kitchen where you can wash them, where you have the kitchen materials, where you have the pots that you can use to parboil them. That's exactly what the query editor stands for. So you bring it into the query editor for data preparation. And once it enters there, what happens there is data cleaning and data transformation. So right there in the query editor, the preparations you carry out involves cleaning the data and transforming the data. Cleaning the data in this context simply refers to a situation where you look at the data. Some of them might not be properly organized. You might have a column that talks about money, that talks about money, but you realize that there's no dollar sign in it. You have to add it. You might have some columns that are supposed to have one or two data type or the other, but they're not properly put in order. And you know it's going to affect the analysis. You perform all those activities. So you might have a need to add a column that you require in your dashboard or in your analysis, but not presently available there. You will add it. Then you might have some columns that are not necessary for your analysis. We'll call them redundant columns. You might need to remove them. When you carry out all these activities, you are doing data cleaning and data transformation. Then all of this, both connecting from the data source, cleaning and transforming it, and possibly when you are done with the cleaning and transforming it, you now load it inside your data model, where you will commence the process of analysis. These steps taken so far is what we call extract, transform, and load. In short, we call it ETL. It's a popular jargon analysis, ETL. Extract, transform, and load. The first thing you do is you extract the data from the source. That is, you connect data from the source, you transform it. Then when you feel this data is fully transformed and you're ready to perform analysis, you now load this data into the Power BI data model. It's there in that environment that you can now begin to perform your analysis. So that's all of it all. You see the data source, and there is a connection from Power BI. You connect from Power BI, then after transformation, you now load it inside the data model. Now, in the data model is an environment where you perform several activities. And some of the activities you can perform in the data model are, one, you can go to the data and model view. The data and model view is an environment where you look at the data that you've loaded to your data model and you can go to the model view to see how the individual tables that you're using in your analysis relate with each other. These are the things we're going to do when we begin. And the next is you can now, after looking at your data, you now take a good study of what the data is all about. Is that supposed to be a transaction made by a particular company, or is that supposed to be student result, or is that a supermarket data set? You get used to the data set. You cannot perform analysis without getting used to the data set you are working with. It's until that is done that you now move over to data analysis. That is when you begin to create insights out of the data that have been given to you. It's a very simple phenomenon. You create insights out of data given to you. Then, in the process of creating insights, you have to perform what we call inspect, explore, and understand data. That's exactly what happens between the first two, data and model view, the data analysis. You take a look at the data you're working with, inspect it well, try to understand what kind of data is, what are the columns there, what are the rows, how many, what from when to when is the data, how many years data is that, and you just get used to the data. Then the next is for you to, of course, view and edit relationships between tables. That's what we call table relationships. Now, when you are working with different tables, possibly you have the customer table. That's a table that describes customers. Then you have a product table. That is a table dedicated to product. Then you can have table for returns. Possibly somebody bought something and returns it for a reason. You have a table that captures it. Then you have table for order or transactions, daily transactions, or maybe a sales table, a table that shows transactions that took place daily. These are different tables. That's what we call data, that's what we call relationship. All these tables relate. For instance, you have the product table, you have the customer table, and you have the sales table. That's a relationship, because in the sales table, the product must exist before it is sold. In the sales table, before a customer will buy, then his name must also be part of our customer's table. That is to show that the sales table should have a relationship with the customer table, and the sales table should also have a relationship with the product table. This is what we call data model. When you create and edit those relationships between different tables you are working with, we call it data model. We're going to look at them. Then, after assessing and making sure that your tables are well related, you now move into the report view. As at now, you will not see anything in the report because nothing has been reported yet. So what simply happens is that at the report view now, you begin to build visualizations. Visualizations is more or less like making use of the multiple visuals you have in Power BI to create reports. Like you have the pie chart, you have the column chart, you have the bar chart. When you begin to use them to summarize your analysis in such a way that the stakeholder or stakeholders can easily look at the report and understand it at a glance, that's what we call reports. So this is the workflow. Remember, it begins from connecting to the data source and preparing the data for analysis. by cleaning and transforming it. And this is what we call extract, transform, and load. And by the time we extract data from the source, transform it, and load it into our data model here, automatically, the next thing will be for us to look at the data and the model, look at it closely, inspect and explore it to understand the data well, to know what the data is talking about, so that in a sentence, I can easily say that this data is sales report from so and so company, and this data was collected within so and so period of time, and so you can be able to get used to it. And after which, you move to the report view for data visualization, and you begin to use the multiple visuals to create reports. Now, after you have connected the data, the next thing is analysis. So let's move on. The next thing I would like us to say is this. Now, let's initiate a project. Let's initiate, before we move into the classroom, let's initiate a project. In our lesson in Power BI Desktop, we're going to make use of a major project so that we can be able to drive home the point effectively. So the first thing is this. Let's introduce a project and what is the situation in the project that we're introducing. Assuming you have been hired by a company to design and deliver an end-to-end business intelligence solution. A company invites you and tells you, please, we want you to design for us an end-to-end business intelligence solution. It's called end-to-end business intelligence solution. It is because by the time you connect data from the source, clean the data, transform it, and eventually build a report, that report will be able to tell a story of what has happened, a summary of what has happened in the organization over the period of time that the data was given to you. That is why it's called an end-to-end business intelligence solution. So that is the situation before us now. And now that you have this situation, the brief, what is the brief? Your client needs a way. What does the client want? If you are invited to design and deliver an end-to-end business intelligence solution, then you must receive a brief from your client. That is something he needs. No matter how good your report will be, if it doesn't capture what the client needs, you are not worthy of the pay. So, what does the client need? Your client needs a way to track KPIs. KPIs means key performance indicators. Key performance indicators. He wants to know the key performing indicators, such as sales. He wants to know what is the total sales of a particular product. If I want to know what is the total sales of a particular product in a particular period of time, or by a particular salesperson, if I want to know the total revenue gotten in a particular year or throughout the period of the data you have, he wants to know the profit from each product, or profit from each salesperson, or profit from each year. You want to look at the returns. You also might want to compare regional performances. Maybe the organization has about 4 regions or 4 or 5 branches, and they want to know the performances of all the branches around. How are they performing? You may also want to analyze the product level trend. How does the product move? Maybe the company came up with a new product. I want to know how the company, the product is moving, and this them. And you should be able to forecast and identify high value customers. First of all, you can be able to forecast. You should be able to say that a company made 20 million this year, and they made 20 million 30 million last year. They made so last 3 years. Therefore, in 10 years' time, this is what the company will make. You'll be able to forecast. Another thing is the company might want you to help them identify high value customers. They want to know the customers that are worthy of being honored by reason of the rate at which they patronize the company. These are some of the briefs the company has given you. And in all these things, all you have been given is a folder of raw CSV files. Now, remember that you cannot perform this analysis without data set given to you. So by the time the company has finished telling you this is what we want, the next thing you demand for is, do you have a database? Now, the company possibly gives you a folder. Say, yes, we have a folder containing information about our transactions, about returns, about products, about customers, and about territories and the rest of them. And by the time they give you this data set, it's in a folder, and it's a CSV file. A CSV file is a file, we call it means a comma separated value. Is a format. The file, the data set or the raw files can come in any form. It might be in a database form. It could be. It might need to be scraping the data from an online platform. It might be the data set might be in Google Drive in any form. So, but in this case now, possibly what you are given to is a folder of raw CSV files, and then you are asked to move on. So what will be the objective? In this project, the objective is for us to use Power BI Desktop to do the following. One, in this project, we will first of all connect and transform the raw data. Secondly, we will build a relational data model. And third, we will create new calculated columns and DAX measures. And four, we will design an interactive report to analyze and visualize the data. This is exactly the same as the workflow. So the first thing we will have to begin to do now is to learn how to connect and transform the raw data given to us. So as it stands now, we have a raw data. So can we move on to see the raw data? I have a folder, and inside the folder, I have AdventureWorks raw data. That is the company who want to analyze their data. AdventureWorks. And this is the folder given to us. And if I open it, I will see the different data sets. You can see AdventureWorks calendar lookup table, AdventureWorks customer table, AdventureWorks product table, product category, and the rest of them. These are different data sets. We're going to be exploring them. And if you look at the CSS data for 2020, 2021, and 2022. So these are current data sets. So what are we going to do? Now that we have our data sets given to us, Now that we have a data set given to us, what do we do? What we will do is we will now use Power BI to connect to it. That is the first thing. This is our raw data. And our raw data is located on the desktop. Please take notes. Let me close this. Our raw data is located on the desktop of the computer. And if I double click inside the desktop, you see a folder, and inside the folder, you see the folder that carries the data set. So we're going to connect to this data sets individually. And to do this now, we'll open our Power BI. Our Power BI is open already. In our last class, we had a brief description of what Power BI environment looks like. Let's just go through it briefly. We have the file menu, we have the edit menu, the insert menu, the modeling view, optimize and help. Now, below it, we have other commands. So when you click on any of the menu options, the command will be displayed on the ribbon below. Now, by the left-hand side, you will see the three core views, which in the recent version is 4 now. You will see DAX. The first one is the report view, which is the default view that we can see here now. The second one is the data, the table view, which displays the data. There is no data available for now. We've not performed any connection. The third one is the model view, which displays the data model. But because no data has been connected yet, you will not see anything. Now, if you click on the report view, because the report is the environment where you create your visuals, you will see the visualization options here. You will look at them once you point the cursor on each of them. These are different visualizations we're going to use. And when you look at this right-hand side, you will see this option, filter, which when you click it, it will pop out. And when you click on this double arrows, it will close up. You will see also that the visualization pane can be collapsed using the collapse button. So these three buttons here are called the collapse buttons. This one collapses the data. When you click on it, it opens the data, but the data is no data yet. This one collapses and opens the visuals. You can see the visual icons. And this one collapses the filter. We will look at all these things, but take note of it. Now, below this area, below the down left corner, you will notice the desktop layer view. You will see another view also, the mobile layer view, which when you click on it, it shows you how the mobile view will look like. And you click back again, you see the desktop view. And after that, you will see the page 1. You will see an icon called new page, which means that on this environment where I can create my report, I might have a need for another report sheet. I will simply click on the add button to get another report sheet. I can click again and again to have report sheets added. And I may decide to delete them by closing at this point and say delete. If you hover the cursor on it, you will see an X button as the delete until I can delete this. And of course, you will not be able to delete the last one. So when you hover on it, you see that the delete icon will not show. So that's the holistic view. Look at this environment now towards the right. You will see the zoom. You can decide to, that shows the way you zoom your canvas. This is called a canvas. This is called the report view canvas. I can increase the report view canvas by clicking on the add plus. I can reduce it by clicking on the minus. So you can see the addition and the subtraction involved there. So apart from that, let us go ahead to perform our first exercise in the workflow, which is data connection. To perform data connection in Power BI, you go to the Insert button, and you go to Home tab, the Home tab. From the Home tab, under the Data group, of course, when you click on any menu option, you will notice that the commands in the menu will be displayed on the ribbon. And on the ribbon there, you will see the commands divided into groups. Just as you can see here, the clipboard group, the data group, the queries group. So from this data group, I can go to get data. If I click on this get data, it will open me up to the get data dialog box. Now I can now choose the category where I want to select an option to, depending on my data source. I can choose file. From file, I can connect to data in Excel. I can connect to a text/CSV file. Don't forget that our data set is a CSV file. I can connect to an XML file, and you can see different file types. If my data set is under database, I can click on database and I go for any of the database management tools. I can connect data from SQL, from Postgres. I click on Postgres and connect. We are going to do all this. If I'm connecting from an online, I can use Azure, or I go to others. Instead of using Azure, I go to others. From others, I can connect data from the web. If you want to connect data from maybe Wikipedia, a data set there, or any data online, we use web. And there are other online platforms and other platforms we can use. We can connect that from a SharePoint. We can connect that from Dropbox. We can connect that from Google Drive. We can connect that from OneDrive. But for now, our data is a CSV file. So we'll click on File. And since it's a CSV file, we select CSV file, text to CSV file, and move on to connect. Move on to connect. Click on connect. And once we click on connect, now we will have to navigate to the location where our file is. Remember, our data set is on the desktop. So I click on the desktop. You must be able to know how to navigate to the location where your data set is. Mine is on the desktop. I'm going to send you this data set so you know where you put it and you will be able to practice with it. I click on desktop, and the data set is inside the folder, and the folder name is Power BI class. Look at it here. So I double click on the folder, and the file I'm looking for is inside AdventureWorks raw data. I will double click on it, open, and I will see all the raw files. I can see all the raw files. Now, assuming I want to connect to AdventureWorks product lookup table. AdventureWorks product lookup table. I will click on it and I will click open. Now, from the workflow, you should be able to guess where we'll enter now. We will move into the Power Query editor. But before then, it will open us up to this environment where we have three options: load, transform, data or cancel. If I don't want to proceed with this, I simply cancel. If this data set is already clean, if it's already clean, I don't have anything to change in it, I can proceed and load it. And once I click on load, it will load this data straight into the data model where I can begin to use it to run my analysis. But because the data is very dirty, that I must wash it, clean it, transform it, I will have to select this option, transform data. And when I click on this transform data, guess what happens? I will be taken into the query editor. And I'd like to gladly welcome you to the query editor. And you can watch it now, look at it now. Untitled Power Query Editor. This is the environment where the data cleaning, the data transformation, the data wrangling takes place. So each time I come into this environment, to be able to understand its difference from the data model, I try to drag it out to see my data model page below, and I will see this. So you can see that the Power BI desktop is made up of two different interfaces. One is the model view, and two is the Power Query Editor. One is the model view, and two is the Power Query Editor. The model view is where we perform our analysis, we run our visualizations, but the query editor is where we perform our data cleaning and the data transformation. So because our interest for now is on the query editor, permit me to show you the three control buttons at the edge of it. The minimize button, the restore, and the close. I always like using this button to expand my query editor so that my query editor will take the entire shape of the interface. Now, here we are in the query editor. Now we are in the query editor. Now, the query editor can be divided, or you can call it the query tool, or you can call it the query editor. The query editing tool has three primary tabs. The query editing tool, this environment you can see now, it has three primary tabs. The first tab is the home tab. Please take note of it. We will work with it so much. The home tab. This, if you look at the home tab, it displays the tools that you can use to perform some general settings and common table transformation tools. You can see them. You can see the close and apply. You can see the new source, the recent source, enter data, data source setting, manage parameter, and the rest of them. We use it to perform some general settings. The second one is the transform tab. The transform tab, you can see it includes tools to modifying existing columns. You see the splitting, the grouping. If you look at it, you can use this transform, just as name goes, transform. You can use it to perform some transformational processes on this data set, such as if you look at replace value, field, pivot columns, convert to list, you can split column, format, extract, perform some small mathematical transformations around. We're going to look at them one after the other. Then the third one there is the add column. These are three major columns that you must be conversant with. These three major columns, you must understand them on your own, and you must know what they can do. Now, if you look at this, the add column is another powerful tool that enables us to create new columns. If you have a need to create a new column, because when we are working, there are certain columns that might not be available in another set. So we will use some conditions to create them. This add column will help us to create new columns, and possibly those new columns may be based on conditional rules, text operations, calculations, dates, etc. So these are the things we're going to look at closely. Now, one thing you must know also about the Power Query is that it is used for mainly connecting and transforming data. Now, if you look at the Power Query, you will see different sections. The first section, of course, is the one I've just described now, the Query Editing Toolbox. This environment where you have your home, transform, add column, view tools, where you want to change it, some commands will change here. We call it the Query Editing Toolbox. That is the toolbox. That a toolbox is a container that carries all your tools. That's exactly what this environment does for us. So we call it the toolbox. Now, the second section is the formula bar. Look at the formula bar. You can see the formula bar just like you have it in Excel. It usually contains codes. Don't bother yourself about the codes for now. We will come to that. But you're going to see what we call the M code. The M code. These codes are generated automatically as you work. The third one I want you to take note of is the query list. Look at the query list. What the query list does is that it helps you to know how many queries that you have in your query editor. For instance, for now, we have only one query, and you can see it, AdventureWorks product lookup table. That is the number one thing that you can see there, and it's located by the left-hand side. Then the next aspect is look at the right pane. The right pane, you will see the properties pane. On the properties pane displays the table name and the properties. Look at it. You can see the table name, and another thing it displays is the applied steps. For instance, when you come into Query Editor, you see the table name. Oftentimes, if you look at this table name, it's too long, so you can edit it from here by clicking into this box. Let me edit it. Let it just be products. Let me just call it products. I always like making the name of my table short, product. And once you do that, you can see that the name of the table has changed here, products. So you can make a change from your product name. You can edit the product name here. And in this place, you have apply steps. The importance of the apply steps is that when you make any change in your query editor, the step you applied will show here. Let me make one major step. Look at this column, product name. If I right click on it and hit delete, I say remove, it will remove that column. And once the column is removed, you come to the apply steps, and you see that the apply step will tell me that the column has been removed. That is how amazing it is. So any step that you make, the apply step will record it. If I want to reverse the process, I will simply come to that particular apply step and click on the X, just as you can see X here. Once I click on it, it will reverse the process. You can see that the product name has returned back again. That is how powerful this can be. Are we still there? Can I have you respond again as we continue? I'm not going to take you too long. After this lecture, I will make a follow-up of this lecture. I will make a follow-up of this lecture in a video so that it will not be too voluminous for those who are not in class today. So I think I've made a general wrap-up now, and it's very clear. So can you respond to me? I think the best thing for us is to stop here for today, and by tomorrow, you are going to have a recorded video that will continue from here. So it's going to be a continuation so that you can take your rest and prepare for work tomorrow, possibly. Then by tomorrow, another video will come up. There will be a continuation to this. So can I have your response before we end the class for today? Can I have your response? Okay. Yes. So as soon as this class is over, before tomorrow morning, you will get the recorded video of this to continue with. And another thing is a continuation of this video will come up as a recorded, but still very simple, just as simple as I'm saying it here now. It's going to be so simple as that, and we will be able to continue so that others can be able to join us also. I think it's amazing. I think we'll have to stop here